Let's play one more piece of sound. I just thought this was interesting. This is Javad Zarif, who is Iran's foreign minister. He resigned a couple of weeks ago, and they did this whole process, which was super Iranian, where he basically allowed himself to get begged to stay in his job, and then he did. And he's at the Asia Society in New York. This was, I think, a week ago. I just want to bear in mind, like this to me, and we're going to need to talk about Iran a lot more, I think all of us, because the Trump administration is going through the same steps right now that you did before the invasion of Iraq. Mm-hmm. And they detonated an incredible deal, like something that Obama should get credit for every single day. The joint framework agreement is like the best thing that's happened in international relations, I think, in our lifetimes, or at least in our adult lifetimes, mm-hmm. right? Now, they're threatening countries with secondary sanctions if they continue to do business with Iran. They're trying to hype all sorts of tension with them. And I just wanted to play this as point of reference for, and I'm not big into like, oh, look what they've done to the office. But think of Mike Pompeo and then contrast him with this guy.
Accept that coercion should be the rule of the game. We're not idealists. We know that power play is a fact of life in international relations. But power has to be moderated by some sort of rules. Otherwise, we'll be living in a jungle. I do not want to repeat and bring you back to history. We had an empire ruling the world for much longer than the US has ever existed. And it ends. Empires end. We need to know whether we want to establish a modus operandi that would last longer than our empire.
Who do you think the Europeans or the Chinese or the Indians or anybody would prefer to do business with?
I mean,
it's so right. It's so obvious, but this is the nation branding going on right now.
Yep.
And we're the ones fucking all of this up that everybody signed off on as working perfectly well.
You know, all these countries are ripping us off. You know, there's massive trade deficits. It's
coming.
You know, our industries are really suffering right now. I mean, of course. I mean, who would want to work with someone like Trump? And look, so far, I'm actually shocked at how willing, you know, some of these European countries, Germany being one of them, is still willing to work with Trump, given his incompetence, given his lack of understanding about what the realities are of trade deficits and things like that. But yeah, I mean, and I bring up trade deficits because it's a perfect example of how the U.S. right now is failing and allowing, you know, Russia to come in and use its influence, right? And I'm not trying to Russia fearmonger here, but Mexico is now doing trade deals with Mexico and Russia are now doing trade deals when they hadn't really done so before. They were more, you know, adversarial when it came to business. Yeah, I mean, just to answer your question, Trump thinks he's such a great businessman, but in reality, he's incompetent. I think it shows. He's very antagonistic. And he's antagonistic while being incredibly ignorant, right? Like, so he accuses people of ripping us off when in reality, we're not getting ripped off in a lot of these cases. And look, I'm not sitting here trying to say that free trade is great and there are no consequences. There are some instances where free trade does not make sense. And industries and workers here in the United States and in the countries we do business with get hurt as a result of that. But it's a nuanced conversation that he has no understanding of. And just based on this short snippet, this guy seems a lot more competent.
This is the face. Like, and Rouhani is he's a quite effective communicator too. Yeah. And it's important that an American audience understands the distinct brand positions going on here. And the depressing irony too that I just want to loop with, when that breakthrough started to happen in the last couple of years of Obama after Rouhani got elected, Rouhani wrote an op-ed for the Washington Post called, it was called like Building a Win-Win World. And the irony is that they constantly, at least from an IR perspective, they're always talking about how nothing is zero sum. And then you have like the American president, idiot, you know, like, it's all zero sum, it's all a reality show. And then listen to this guy literally like in that classy Iranian, like, we had an empire, it lasted for a really long time, but think of how history works. This is what the world is seeing outside of here, where we don't give it any amplification. But they're not seeing like, Mike Pompeo wants us to think of like, oh yeah, it's just Hezbollah. That's not what people see at all. They see this. And this is a far more appealing partner. You've just watched a Michael Brooks show video, and you can watch all of our full main live shows every Tuesday night at around 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and subscribe to get all of the clips you want. We're covering the globe. We're focusing on international relations, the intellectual dark web. We're having fun. We're doing deep dives with a lot of amazing guests. Of course, become a patron for the whole thing at patreon.com/TMBS, or subscribe to this YouTube channel and help us keep growing and get that content out there. Subscribe below.